But when you create the conditions for the transformation, your modus operandi, the secret sauce to the whole matter, no matter if you have to speak out in anger because you're angry, because you shouldn't be angry. These things should anger you. You should not feel yourself any less spiritual or any less representative of God. Do you recall Jesus going into the temple and flipping over the table? Because there are things that should anger someone who has a moral compass and moral code. It should anger you. But it does not mean you're not operating with love. Love is the great motivator. Spiritual leaders take strong stands and operate from love, even if that love is corrective to a society, to an elected official, to individuals within the community. When that love is corrective, it is so that the best can come forth from within the individual. So there, if I don't correct you and I love you, I don't really love you.
Welcome here.
And yes, you are welcome here. That song is always so grounding for me because it is a reminder of who we are and how to be so that we can do what we need to do and create a world that we can say, yes, this is the vision that we have. And it even gets bigger, it gets better. It becomes so much more. We get to live the vision even now as we hold the vision. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, and good day to you wherever you are at this very moment in time. Thank you for being here. Just want to tell you the intro song is my dear brother, John Stringer. Interviewed him about 2 weeks ago. Actually, we did 3 weeks ago and 2 weeks ago because we did part 1 and part 2. And if you missed that show, you got to check it out. You can find it on YouTube by going to Life Conversations Media, or if you're on Facebook, just simply scroll down. You just keep scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. You get there, John Stringer. To find out more about John Stringer, his website address is johnstringerinc.com, johnstringering.com. He's working on something real amazing that I'm a part of that's coming out in about 3 days, June 19th, Juneteenth. So watch this space. I am excited to be a part of it, and I look forward to sharing it with you. We might even do like a broadcast on that day. I don't know yet. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for saying yes to life. Thank you for listening, because you must tune in. And when you tune in, you listen. I usually don't say this part, and you got to be obedient to what you're hearing. But that comes, it's a no-brainer. Because what's the point of listening to divine guidance and then not do anything about it? So you tune in, you listen, and you are transformed. And when you go through your transformation process, you might have to reintroduce yourself to yourself. And I can really say that times like this, we're having to reintroduce ourselves to ourselves. Like, what world is this? What am I part of? It's a new day. It's a new moment. And we are born and created for such a time as this. So if you're asking what is mine to do, we got some lists for you. We're just going to keep doling it out. My guest is here. I'm so excited. I'll talk more about it in a minute. But then again, speaking of a guest, you got to know who I am. If you don't know, I am Ade. I'm up the levels of the Oprahs and what's the other lady's name? The one that took over. I can hear her name in my head. Ellen. You don't need my last name. I'm Ade. You know why? Because Ade makes it. Oh, no. Well, so if you want to remember my name, you say, what a difference Ade makes. So, you don't need my last name. You can't pronounce it anyway. I know people for like 10 years who still butcher my last name. So save me the pain or saving yourself. I'm up there with great people. It takes a little bit of spiritual work. You have to be enlightened in order to go by one name. So, if you hang with me, you just might be enlightened. I'm not saying you will, but maybe you just have to surrender to the process. Okay, let me stop. Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Being You, the podcast, the journey back to yourself, season 2, episode 7. And this journey is about giving you the opportunity, inviting you to look at yourself, to investigate, to put yourself in a place where you say, how do I really see myself? Not what other people are telling you, but how do you see yourself? How do you see the world? How do you see yourself in the world? And how do you see the world in you? That is the process of healing the sense of separation. And we're definitely called to do that. And speaking of a sense of the healing the sense of separation, today's topic is the uncomfortable process of healing. Woo! Healing is messy. If you ain't ready, get out the way. Get out the way. I'm not even going to try to rap. I ain't got nothing on ludicrous. I'm not even going to try. I don't know where that came from. Well, we're one, so I can tap into anybody, but I don't want to test that. I'm just going to do what I do best. My guest is here, Kevin Ross, Reverend Kevin Cottrell Ross. And I just want to check and see who is in here. And I want to bring him on. And I think I'll bring him on after reading his bio. I'm really excited to have Kevin, and I'll read the bio after I check Facebook. Quali's in the house. The K's are in the house. Kat, it is nice to see you. Thank you for being here. Quali said, grand afternoon, Ade, India, and everyone else. And yeah, Rev Kev. India's in behind the scenes. She's got the power. She's moving stuff around. So I have to say some good things about her, or we may have, no, don't even do that. I'm not even going to start speaking them kind of conversation. Don't even make no sense. Stop it. What's wrong with you? Yeah, let's just take a deep breath in together and breathe out and take another breath. Let's do it one more time because it feels good. Take another breath. And I just want to gently remind you to bring your awareness to the truth, the spiritual fact that something is breathing you. A power and presence that, there's so many names that we use to identify, label this power and presence, but it is so much more than the names. It is so much more than we can ever describe. And in this place, I am inviting you to tap into that power, that presence. Whether during this conversation, whether you're inspired or triggered, remember to go back to your breath. We must keep breathing. We're here to be the change. You've heard me say this is showtime. So show up, speak up, and let the presence and the power of the divine, of God, of the Most High, of the Creator, of the divine intelligence, whatever name you want to call it, let it express itself through and as you. So rather than you saying, what's going on in the world, you can say, I am showing up for the world. Take another breath and integrate the truth and let God be God through and as you. And know that all is well, even in the midst of the craziness. It is part of the healing. Whew. Mark, my brother, nice to see you. Thank you for being here. Let me read this bio. I'm feeling. I won't even label what I'm feeling. I just know it's expansive. And I'm so grateful. So grateful. My guest, my friend, my brother, myself, his bio. I'm just going to read a little because as you hear more about him, you will get to meet him, of course. For over 20 years, Kevin Cottrell Ross has been on a mission to inspire and empower everyday people to live extraordinary dreams. Whether it's with his work as a celebrated life coach, radio host, leadership consultant, author, or in his role as the Senior Minister and Chief Executive Officer of Unity of Sacramento. Rev Kev, as he's affectionately called, believes all people deserve to live lives of purpose, passion, peace, and prosperity. There's a lot more, but I just want to share this with you. He's committed to social justice. He's committed to integrating and expressing from that center of spirituality and politics that those of us on the spiritual path, sometimes we sort of run from. We think, oh no, I can't do politics. Well, if you don't do politics, politics will do you. In fact, it is doing you. That's why we need to integrate it. He's also a member of the Executive Council of the Association for Global New Thought. He has served as a guest chaplain for the California State Senate, and he has also been called on numerous occasions to conduct cultural competency trainings for California Department of Social Services. There's so much more I can say about him, and I'm going to bring him on right now. And I am so grateful for this moment, my brother, because I find myself playing this thought over and over. I don't know if I'm looking for an answer, but maybe I am. And I did share with you in an interview that as long as I've known you, you've been doing the work. And as long as I've been doing radio, now podcast, which is really the same thing. I can't believe this is the first time I'm interviewing you. So whatever that is, I welcome it. And at the same time, I am grateful that you're here to have this conversation. And we were communicating before the heat got turned up. So I am so grateful to have you here, my brother.
Thank you, brother. I'm glad to be with you and all of you for tuning in.
Yes. So being you, as you heard, is a journey back to self. And my invitation that I offer my listeners is to kind of look at themselves and see how they're showing up to themselves and to the world and everything that I said at the beginning. And one of the things that I know is important as we navigate this thing called life, it's our spiritual identity. And there's a spiritual signature that we all have, which is our name. So I will start my show by asking my guest, what is the meaning of your name, or what does it mean to you?
Wow, that is a pretty powerful question. And I think it's a question, my actual name means gentle and handsome and that kind of thing, like for real.
that you mean they looked at you and then gave the name a meaning? Is that what you're saying?
But when I think of who I am fundamentally and who I am here to be, I'm here to inspire and empower people to awaken to their divine nature and be a force for good in the world. My name carries the frequency of encouraging individuals, irrespective of race, class, creed, or color, background, gender, political affiliation, sexual orientation, whatever that is. The vibration that's carried with my name is an invitation for individuals to live lives of purpose, passion, peace, and prosperity. And if I am in action anywhere, that is, if you came within hand reach of me, or you're in the sound of my voice, or in some part of where I am, my intention is to bring you to the point where you can see the shine in you. Call that forth. I live to bring the shine out in people and communities. And so the signature with my name, the energetic signature, is one of inspiration and empowerment.
Yes. And you live that, you show up as that, and you've been doing it before New Thought or Second Activism was sexy. You know, I remember Brothers of Thunder. You were bringing it.
Yeah. That's where it started.
That's it. And so let's talk about the topic. And there's many places I want to go. You shared a video on your page this morning. Let's let me not go there yet. And it was about 4 or 5 young people who were stopped by police officers, but we'll go more into that. And I believe what we're experiencing right now is part of the healing. For me, the topic is called the uncomfortable process of healing. For me, healing is not a destination. It is a process. It's a day-to-day process. And healing does happen in an instant. Mm-hmm. It may take some time for us to see with our physical eyes that healing did happen. Like sometimes people pray for a miracle so that we're waiting for something to happen to say a miracle happened. But the miracle happens when we shift our perspective and accept that right where we are, God is health and wholeness is happening. I just want to kind of ask your thoughts about, if you want to talk about the topic itself, the process, the uncomfortable process of healing, or maybe both, and what healing means to you.
Well, certainly. As we are all aware, we're in a very transformational space in this season. All around the world, we are presently witnessing an uprising of sorts that's taking place by people of all backgrounds, of all stripes, of all races, and particularly from this most connected generation in human history. This generation, I believe it's Generation Z, who have come together now to show how much we belong to each other. We know that there's this cross intercultural, intersectional relationships that we're seeing that is not encumbered by some of the old vestiges of our past and what we've learned about who we had to be in the past. A lot of our past is defined by how separate we are and how siloed we are and how and difficult it is for us to be together. This generation is showing us how possible it is for us to be together. We've also seen tremendous triggers. There have been triggers that have helped to reveal how connected we are. And what we're seeing on a mass scale is tremendous violence, racialized violence, particularly that of the murdering of unarmed Black men and women across the United States of America in unprecedented ways. Because of these brave cell phone activists, we are beginning to see what has been unseen. We are beginning to, and not that we didn't know about it, but the world is beginning to finally confirm the narrative that African Americans and people of color in this country have been lifting up about living in a system that is oriented toward oppression, oriented toward violence against our bodies, oriented toward keeping the potential of our communities back. And we've seen this story for centuries. In the United States, our sojourn in this country is over 400 years. Mm-hmm. We've witnessed how the story of oppression continues to form and reform itself, because we've never really and truly done the uncomfortable work as a collective to heal. And in order to heal, we have to reveal. There has to be some revealing before the healing. Let's say if there is an infection, you have an infection somewhere on the body. And this infection is filled with pus. I mean, this infection.
It's you can say it because it is.
It begins to boil up.
Yes.
We start to see on the surface this infection. That is now taking the shape of some kind of boil on the body or bump or something. But it's very apparent that this thing is growing in an unhealthy way.
Yes.
Now, in order for the healing to happen, the sore, the infection has to be exposed. It has to be released. It has to come forth. And so many people pop pimples and lance these kinds of things in order to release the infection. And what we are seeing is the exposure of what's been under the surface, in our collective psyche in this country. This idea of a system that creates a toxic environment based on someone being more superior and others being inferior. We were commonly referred to this system as a system of white supremacy, and where you and I are moving through an environment where it's encoded in the very air we breathe, and the messages that are all around us, and the monuments that are all about the cities where we live, and names that are on buildings, suggesting to us that in some way, shape, or form that we are less than who we are because of the color of our skin, and nothing more. It's absolutely nothing more. And that suggestion not only impacts us, it impacts others who buy into it. And in order to get to the place where we can heal, we've got to admit out loud. We have to say out loud. We have to reject this idea collectively that this false ideology is poisoning the society. It's poisoning whites to give them a false impression that the color of their skin makes them more valuable. It poisons blacks to give them the idea that the color of their skin makes them less valuable. And when we're operating in a society where these ideas are prevalent, we build laws, we build policies, we build codes, we establish social norms that help to ensure that there's no escaping it. And so the manner to this sense of what we all desire, which is equality, fairness, a sense of oneness, or what you're describing with this topic as healing, is to begin to do the uncomfortable work of naming what is or what are the barriers to that healing. And there's a variety of ways and a variety of barriers to that healing that must be named. We have to call it out. We have to call out racism, and to individuals who align themselves with the New Thought community and who have this idea that if I don't say it, it doesn't exist. You are part of the problem.
That's right.
If you are still in the old paradigm of believing that color blindness is enlightened, you are part of the problem.
That's right.
Color blindness, because it's usually a way, color blindness is a way in which this is part of the problem. It's one of the barriers to healing. Color blindness is a way in which very well-intentioned people, mostly white people, very well-intentioned white people mostly, help themselves to feel more connected to people who are not white by saying, I don't see color. And we know what you mean by that. You're kind of going along with the lines of Dr. King. I'm judging you by the content of your character. But, and I'm judging you. I'm not holding you to anything on the outside. I'm looking to the inside of you. But as an individualized expression of God, when God chose to individuate itself, it chose a unique vehicle through which to express. And so color blindness is ignorance. Color blindness is dangerous because it causes you to be selective. I choose not to see the things about you that I don't want to see. So when I'm being colorblind, I'm blocking out the thing. If I don't want to know that about your story, I can say you're not a color, because with my color comes an entire history in this country. And so I don't have to be confronted with the story. I don't have to be confronted with the ways in which my story of whiteness intersects with your story of blackness. I don't have to, because you're not a color. But the fact is we are. We are.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
What is the preferred method to getting toward this idea of universal oneness and harmony and brotherhood is to be color brave. Color bravery is this is that which is a philosophy of courageous curiosity. I am intentionally curious to connect with you in such a way that I want to know.
Yes.
I want to know, where you're from. I want to know what's cooking on the pot in your stove. I want to taste that. I want to know what this accent is about yours, Ade, in that chocolate frame of yours. How do you get? What is all that about? I want to know all of that, because I want you to see that I truly desire to connect. There's no spiritual bypassing. That's another thing that happens. We spiritual bypass. we try to take it. So someone said we're so heavenly bound that we're no earthly good. We go so high up until we bypass that horizontal connection. We want to have want to have both the vertical connection. Yes, we're spiritual beings, but we're having a human experience.
Yes.
Start those connections horizontally, then vertical. That's
so
nobody's story. And so as we begin to name and address and dismantle the barriers that keeps us separate and keeps us taking the poison, and of course sometimes we play along with it. That's Kevin, he's black, but he's not really
right.
And then the polite, non-wanting to offend black person goes along with that. Somehow feeling that he or she has just received some special status, or he has stomached the poison. And how often are we stomaching that poison that's in the atmosphere of white supremacy? That's all it is. And we walk away with it in the name of being polite.
Yes.
In the name of not rocking the proverbial boat. And that has given it so much elbow room, and it has taken away so much mental, spiritual, emotional space, such that we have to find our identity, because it can be lost if we don't really know and own who we are in the space. And I think what this moment is bringing about is the opportunity to have these courageous conversations that will allow us to break through and then get on to this path of racial healing and reconciliation in our lifetime.
Yes. Thank you. As I listened to you, I had a question. It's like, okay, so confronting and speaking the truth and the healing work that is necessary also has to be done at the leadership level, and then I sort of had a question like, well, there's some people who are attached to the way things are because it benefits them.
Yeah.
And they will tell you that, of course, they're going to tell you there is no white supremacy or systemic racism in any system because it's their system. But as I kept listening to you, what I'm sensing and recognizing, realizing, really, it's like, it's more of an opportunity for the people to speak up. We've gone along with things in the past, black or white. We've kind of just said, that's just the way it is. I don't do politics. You can't trust politicians. Whatever we do to make ourselves feel like we're doing just what we're doing. But we're in a place now where life is saying, you got to speak up. Yeah. You got to tell the truth. You got to reveal who you are, because that's part of the healing and everything that you said. It's like, okay, so it's more of a wake up call for the citizens, more of those, because the ones that we're wanting to change, that we call them prime ministers and presidents or whatever, they already know what's going on, and they've been doing everything to keep it like, let nobody find out.
And those individuals that you lifted up are being held up by a consciousness that is very much aligned with theirs. There's a consciousness in the masses, among the masses, that is an exact replica of thoughts that produces the shouldering upon which these misguided leaders ride on. Okay, so these leaders, or non-leaders, as it were, are on somebody's shoulders, and so it is about waking up the individual and the collective consciousness in our society to the realization that we've all been, as Malcolm X says, we've been duped, we've been bamboozled, led astray, run amok. This is your work, Ade. It's what you're doing. It's my work, and it's the work of everyone who considers themselves conscious beings. Consciousness is seeking itself. It's seeking to attract and connect to other awakened consciousness. And so we want people awake to the fact that there is no truth in this superior you and inferior me. And this is why I love this generation that's on the front lines, helping to lead demonstrations around the world, coming out of the proverbial social closets, breaking and interrupting and disrupting the norm. And these individuals are not rioters, they are patriots. These individuals are not on a parade, they are protesting. They are revolting against a system that has for centuries lied about who we are. And these individuals are coming forth and saying, no, here's who we really are. We are one. Here's who we really are. We are equal. Here's who we really are. We are stronger together. And just over and over again, all around the world. This is what we are witnessing. This is what we're witnessing, and it is disrupting the status quo, and it is challenging the social norms, and it is creating an environment where people are fearful and some are paralyzed and stuck in place. They don't know what to do with themselves in this moment. There's a lot of that going on because we are coming into an apocalyptic season. This apocalypse, if you will, is the ending of the world as we know it. The world is coming to an end. The world that we know of separation and duality and polarization and hatred, all of that is now coming to an end. Why? Because what's happening is the veil is being lifted on what has for centuries been lost on the masses. And now as the veil is lifted, the reveal is happening, and we can see now more than ever the path to our freedom, because that's ultimately what it all leads to. That's ultimately when you're free, I'm free. When all of the obstacles and barriers, such as these policies, for example, we've got a big election coming up in November. These voter suppression policies, when that's out of the way, I'm free to participate as a citizen fully. When these social norms of discrimination that we find in a lot of our cities across America that makes it difficult for one or the other to advance, when those are out of the way, there's freedom. And so as individuals wake up, it is impossible for you to be consciously awake and not take it directly, apply the pressure. And this is what I want everybody to do as you speak up, as you're beginning to acknowledge this truth that you always know, as you begin to reject the poison of white supremacy and the suggestions of racist culture and all that, I want you then to now move and make certain that the city, the county, the state, and the nation where you live truly begins to reflect that kind of worldview, a world that works for all, a city that works for all, a county that works for all. And you start digging down into your school board, you dig down into your city council, you get to those places and spaces where policy is set that controls how people can move. That's when we start chipping away at the barriers and holding leaders accountable. They must be held accountable. Otherwise, if we're sleeping in and not voting, if we're non-participant, no matter how woke we are, the structures will outlive our awakening. So the structures have to also be dissolved. Those social structures that oppress, those social structures that keep us separate, redlining in communities, all of those things, and leaders that uphold that kind of thinking.
Yes,
gotta go. It's time's up.
Time is up. Time is up.
World is over, and we're starting to become the architects and builders of that beloved community. As we start to move, and then you start to breathe air that is unsullied. You start to breathe in the peace, and you know it's real because your neighborhood is fully resourced, and your brother's neighborhood is fully resourced. Kids who are coming back and forth to school are unafraid of being assaulted and attacked in the middle of the streets by wayward law enforcement officers. They're not. We're not. That world is over because we reimagine what public safety looks like. Public safety does not have to look like somebody pulling up, right, with guns drawn because a man falls asleep in a Wendy's drive-through, and that encounter cost him his life. Now, what if they sent Ade out there to check on him and say, oh, you know what, this man is intoxicated. We can see that. We're going to get him an Uber and get him home, and we're going to get him into a treatment program. I know just a treatment program for him. We're reimagining what the world can be out of this value for the well-being and equality of every life.
Yes.
So what I'm so happy to see around the world is people affirming Black Lives Matter. And I would love, and because it's coming from all over the world, it's like they're saying Black Lives Matter to us. Black Lives Matter to me. If you can truly say that, then you know all other living people have already been covered.
Right.
You know, right. To be considered in the conversation, so you know everybody else is covered.
Yes, exactly.
So this our ancestors are celebrating this historical moment. The ancestors, the Black ancestors, our African ancestors who did not survive the Middle Passage, and those that struggled to bring us to this tipping point in human history, and those white ancestors who held abolitionist tendencies, who were there to help deconstruct some of the barriers along the way. They were there as well. That legacy needs to get picked up in this moment as well. You know, whites who are having a very difficult time finding what can we do. There's a part of your legacy, whites. There's a part of your abolitionist legacy that you may want to start reading in and tuning in. Those are the people who are laying their lives on the line just to dismantle slavery. And as you start to identify yourself with that conscious core of individuals, you start to join a conscious majority of us who want to tip the scales of human history at this time. And you can, and you will.
Yes. There's a power and presence that's supporting. We're responding to an impulse.
Absolutely.
It's not, we saw it and we acted, but we're responding to an impulse. This is the time. It's happening. So I want to ask you a question. It's a two-part question.
Mm-hmm.
And you're sort of like me. So all it takes is one word and you just download this stuff. So I'm going to put it all together rather than ask them separate. So I want to ask you more of a personal thing. As an African-American in America, how are you navigating life now? How are you seeing your world, your children, your father, your husband? So there's that part. The other part is, get a little bit of context to it. You're the senior minister of Unity of Sacramento. Unity, yes, like other spiritual centers, is most majority white. It's changing. And the messages that you've been putting out there lately, you've been doing it, but you've been like, ooh, you turned the heat up now. It's like, ooh, people are ready to eat. Let me turn it up. Messages that can make people feel uncomfortable, can make white people feel uncomfortable, could make black people, but you've been really, I feel like there's an intent to just speak what wants to be spoken. So that question is, as an African-American man, as a leader in Unity of Sacramento, are you getting any pushback or people saying, I'm glad you're speaking those words? And do you find yourself having to say, you know, there's been things I've been wanting to say as a minister that I haven't said, but I have to say now. Mm-hmm. If you need me to repeat the questions, I can, but I know you got it. So I throw it back to you.
Well, I appreciate the question. First of all, as an African-American man in these times in which we live, I too am very conscious of the fact that I am that. You know, so I have experienced some of the same things that others have experienced. And as a social justice activist, I've been trapped on a bridge with demonstrators and arrested. You know, I know the feeling of looking in what appears to be the face of soulless law enforcement officers. I've placed my life on the line, forming a human chain in front of armed police mounted horses. And I mean, I've seen all of the what looks like hatred coming out of the eyes of these individuals just because we are saying we want to be free. So I'm conscious that I am a black man, an African-American man in society. Once upon a time, not very long ago, I had my assistant copy my driver's license, my registration and insurance, and have it laminate, color copy front and back, and laminate as one document that I can keep on my dashboard in my cars. Make 3 copies, 3 cars, and in each car, so that I don't have to reach ever. Why? Because I recognize that I can pray the prayer for protection. I can be very clearly centered and grounded. But thus far, I have not been able to make myself invisible to bad actors in law enforcement. And so I remember, and I've said this in meetings with the police chief and others that I've met with, I said, I have been chased down in Sacramento. I have felt that panic that black men feel every time police come by. I have felt that. I know what it's like by officers in this city, officers in Chicago, officers in New York. I have felt it. It's palpable and it's uncontrollable because it's not even based on lived experience as much as it is. I'm tapped into the collective memory, the collective memory bank of all people who are like me. We can feel, this is where this conversation post-traumatic slave disorder comes from. There's a part of the collective wounded body of our sojourn here on these shores that still is in the deoxyribonucleic acid of Black people. So I feel all of that, and I know that vulnerability, and so I watch as well as pray. Okay,
Yes.
so I make sure that I have my documentation in order. I make sure that if I'm moving around, in certain scenarios, I have security with me. I make sure that there's certain things that just have to be in place, because at the end of the day, I am first a father and a husband and a provider to my family, and then a leader in the community, in that order. To answer a question about my leadership role, my community is unique in Unity churches. I do have I integrated congregation. People from every background and race and tongue attend my services. So the congregational profile looks more like the United Nations at Unity of Sacramento. And this is something that I've intentionally built because we cannot heal one another if we don't know one another. We cannot heal one another if we can't hear one another, if we don't have the encounter. And so my community reflects the world that I want to see in the whole. So I have always sought, from the time I came here, being inspired by the work of Howard Thurman, who had this type of congregation in the 1940s in San Francisco. He had this profile congregation.
Wow.
So
I didn't know that. Wow.
Yes, he did. And when I was a student at Morehouse in Atlanta, I said, if I ever got to lead a congregation, I want to have a chance to do what Howard Thurman was doing. I want to help to shift the consciousness and to prove Dr. King and Malcolm X wrong that Sunday mornings was the most segregated hour. Sunday mornings, 11 o'clock was the most segregated hour in the country when Christians get together to worship. That was a common phrase here by those leaders. I said, I want to disprove them. I want to do what Howard Thurman did. I want to bring people together. And so we've always had courageous conversations. I've never allowed myself to bite my tongue around the issues. I have taken my time to bring people along. I've done what Jesus did. He would break the bread and then distribute the bread. Sometimes if you give people the bread whole, they will choke on it. Right? If the congregation knew everything that I had to teach them on day one, maybe we would have a problem. This is what the master teacher Jesus would say to his disciples when they would ask him for the deeper knowledge. And, I want to go deeper. He says, I have meat to eat that you know not of. We're going to get there. But we've got to work with the stage where we are. And so with my community, I've been very intentional about taking things in stages. And now we've come to a point where my congregation is accustomed to relevant and timely messages that seek to align with a very clear vision and mission that we have for the world. Our vision is centered in God. We co-create a world of peace, prosperity, and unconditional love for all. And so this is the world we are building. And so as we have come into times, for example, there was a rash of hate crimes against people in the LGBTQ community. And so we would do vigils, and I would do press conferences standing with the gay community. And we would get our arms around that community and tie it back to our vision. When there were assaults against the Muslim community, we say we're intercultural, we're interfaith. Very good. There are attacks against the Muslim community. There we are. How does our mission and vision, our core values relate to this world that works for all and what's happening with our brothers and sisters who are in the Muslim community? We get to stand with them. We get to outreach. So we do those outreaches. When our Mexican brothers and sisters and individuals from different parts of the world are faced with crisis at the border and the president is the impeached president.
Right. Right.
Is setting policy that is locking babies in cages and separating children from their mothers. We amass 1,000 people to go to the U.S.-Mexico border to challenge this, to bear witness to this, to stand with them. So my oneness is not merely theoretical. You can't stop with this theoretical. It's got to have a rubber hit the pavement kind of thing if we're going to have true social change, if we're going to really experience the transformation. This is what I love about those individuals that are marching. They get a taste of what it feels like to be in a sea of humanity working toward a world that works for all. And they can feel the power of their unity across. That's the one thing, if you've never done a demonstration, a protest, a march, you've been in, and I'm not talking about a parade. Let me be clear.
Right.
There's a distinction between a protest and a parade. You're not standing for anything in a parade. You're just there to have.
You're dancing for something.
And nothing wrong with a parade, but that's not the moment. But when humanity comes together, compelled by this holy invitation that we're having, and for me, what I believe that invitation was the witness of George Floyd call for his mama. And those individuals all over the world, everybody knows that feeling of helplessness, that vulnerability, that primal utterance. Mama, umi, mum. Everyone, it sent a shockwave across the earth. Mother Earth.
Yes.
Sent a signal out to all sentient beings that could relate to the cry, mama, mommy, umi, mum, mother. That connected us all. It transcended all barriers, and it was something so deep, so primal in us. We could not ignore that call. We could not ignore that call. We saw his humanity, and we saw our connection to his humanity. And this is what we're wanting to be lifted up in public spaces. So when individuals get this taste of that, you can't untaste it. You can't unsee it. You can't unfeel that deep connection. And then you start to build a life around your life narrative includes those spaces. And so now that we are in a space where we are literally experiencing overt racism from the highest office in the land, that is threatening our worldview, our vision of the world, then it's time to teach more deeply and dispel those myths that are being projected from the leadership. And so I tell my congregation, you can handle the truth. You will be uncomfortable today. So suit up for the rest of this talk, because if you're sitting here and you're not uncomfortable as we call out white supremacy, as we call out racism, as we call out all of those barriers, and that nothing's triggering in you, you're not paying attention. If you're not outraged by what you are seeing in the killings, the repeated killings of Black people across the world, you're not paying attention. What I love about my congregation in particular is that they're committed to their spiritual growth, no matter what. Last night we were on what we call a virtual friendship hall call. It's Monday evening, and since we've been sheltering in place, we haven't had a chance to really see each other physically. So just jump on a Zoom call and get to hang out with each other. At the end of our discussion, they said, Rev, we want to go deeper. Really? Yeah, I started reading this book, White Fragility, and I'm watching the movie The 13. Maybe we can do a group discussion. Why don't you create a safe container so we can just go in? I want to do some. These are many of my white members were saying, I want to do some some implicit bias work, and I want to see what my blind spots are. They were asking me, let's go deeper. I was like, all right.
Yes.
But when you create the conditions for the transformation, your modus operandi, the secret sauce to the whole matter, no matter if you have to speak out in anger because you're angry, because you should be angry. These things should anger you. You should not feel yourself any less spiritual or any less representative of God. Do you recall Jesus going into the temple and flipping over the table? Because there are things that should anger someone who has a moral compass and moral code. It should anger you. But it does not mean you're not operating with love. Love is the great motivator. Spiritual leaders take strong stands and operate from love, even if that love is corrective to a society, to an elected official, to individuals within the community. When that love is corrective, it is so that the best can come forth from within the individual. So if I don't correct you and I love you, I don't really love you.
Right.
If I don't correct society, I've not been sent here to be clergy in the king's court. I've seen these ministers sit around with the president, the impeached president, signing off on some of the most inhumane policies and policies that harm themselves. And I call those being clergy in the king's court. But you and I are here to be prophets, speaking power, speaking truth to power, being the corrective moral compass for leadership so that we can bring forth the beloved community. Yeah. We got a vision on the other side of all this activism. It is the same vision that Jesus had. And as I've been rethinking Jesus, bro, and I really think he was dealing with white supremacy too. I want you to think about it. I want you to really, really think about the Roman Empire. But we don't have time for that. That's another conversation.
Okay, give us a summarized version.
You listen, the Romans, the idea that they had of themselves. And here comes this, he was at least brown skinned, Palestinian Jew, challenging their structures of power.
Yeah.
Talking about another kingdom inside of their kingdom. A kingdom not made with hands. This beloved community that we're talking about is no different than what Jesus was talking about when the great saints and sages of the ages. It's no different than what they were talking about. It's a kingdom not made with hands. Why? Because it's a realization within you of our oneness. And when that oneness is now on the throne of your heart, on the throne of our hearts all over the world, there's no external force or power mighty enough to stop us. That's the work I'm engaged in. Yes. I'm so sincerely committed to that.
Yes.
And I'm empowered that and deeply grateful that you are as well, because you've been on the journey a long time too.
Yes.
I was on my way to get you from some border. I didn't know where you were, but
I was in New Mexico. You were your way. Yep. I was having my Jesus experience, 40 days and 40 nights. It's like, but I didn't sign up for this. But I want to ask you this before we release this conversation. So you shared a video today of 4 or 5 young people, African Americans, that were stopped by police officers. I wasn't quite sure if the police officer had his gun out or he had his hand on it.
His gun was drawn.
I tell you, when I was looking at that video, I was tearing up. And it wasn't tearing up from a place of helplessness or hopelessness. It was a connection. Even the woman who was recording it, it's like I could feel her pain. Everybody who was there It's like we're in the midst of the most traumatic trauma on Black people that's been televised day after day after day after day. And people may not leave their body and die physically, but some people are dying. What would you say to people who are watching this? Because there's some people who still come up with it. Well, you don't know what happened before that. I can't even address that. I shouldn't even think about that because it's going to take me another tangent. But there are people who are watching this. One, they are doing something about it. But when you see another human being, not just because they look like you, and because they look like you, and this has been happening in an institution that's full of racists, some people are arguing, well, all police officers are not bad. That's irrelevant. That's not what we're talking about here. If we have pilots crashing planes, we're not going to go into, well, some pilots are good. No, we want pilots who are effective. Mm-hmm. So my question is, what would you share? What can you share with particularly African Americans, Black people, not just in America, in UK, because same thing's going on over here, just a little bit more quiet, that are feeling the trauma, they're catching PTSD from what they're seeing, and having leaders talk about it's really not a big deal. What would you say to them to console them, to help them stay connected with that true source of transformation?
I wrote something that I think would be comforting, that may be appropriate for this, and I think it'll speak to it, and I'll just make a comment. Mm-hmm. It wasn't expecting you were going to bring this up, but it's perfect.
Hey, God knows what God is doing.
I've been encouraging people to never waste good anger. Don't waste good anger. And I'm going to post a video where I did a complete talk on that. I'll put it on my Facebook page for people who really know how to process through the anger, the pain, the trauma. I will make certain that it gets posted on my Facebook page. It's too long to put on Instagram, so you have to. If you're an Instagrammer, you got to come on over to Facebook for it. I promise.
You can put it. You can put it on IGTV, can't you?
I'll have to ask folks who do that side of my work. Okay. But it'll help people walk through the process. But here it is, because this is one of the ways I've had to process my anger and emotion around what's going on, and so I've been able to transmute it into something that's been empowering for me. It's untitled, but it says, "The winds of revolt are raging. The unburdening of the backs of the oppressed is at hand. The hour for cowards is fading. It's time for the patriots stand. The days of the system are numbered. The fire is too hot to cease. The rebels have been discovered. The races had better retreat. The blood of the innocent runneth for the noble and righteous to see. A tsunami of justice cometh, more mighty than earth, sky, and sea. For the God of peace has been awakened by the ancestors' relentless cries. Their sons and daughters shall not be forsaken. Their sacrifice shall not be denied. The voice of the prophets are speaking. The word of truth is being declared. Turn about, change your course, pay attention, for the unrighteous shall not be spared. The onslaught of swift correction shall thunder in the conscience of men. The last chance to receive protection may never be offered again, for time is up for the oppressor, the thief of life and liberty, of lies and of deception, of pain and of misery. For the gladiators of justice are riding. The cadence of their coming can be heard. The sunrise of freedom is shining, and love will have the final word.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Love will have a final word. And love is that unifier. And this question, really, I got to ask you this before you go, because I actually had planned to ask you at the beginning, but I forgot. this thing that you've spoken to, but spirituality and politics. Is it important to be spiritual and political as well, or do we need to keep them separate? If it is, why?
I believe that we are intersectional beings in the same way that you are spirit, soul, body, and we recognize the threefold aspect of our nature as individuals participating in a world that is oriented, has a particular system for procuring freedom and rights. Then as a human being, as human having a spiritual being having a human experience, I must ensure from my moral perspective that the world around me reflects the values of inclusion, the values that engender freedom. So this idea of, and to be honest with you, this idea that suppresses your authentic voice, because we're all integrated. You know, we're not within ourselves. All of these selves live within us. We have thoughts. But that world of supremacy doesn't want you to fully engage in society.
Yes.
And you might dismantle the barriers to our collective freedom. So what do they say? Don't ever talk about religion. Don't ever talk about politics. So what happens? It creates a status quo of individuals that have learned how to tiptoe around the topics that really matter. So that when we come together, we talk about the weather, and we talk about drapery, and we talk about entertainment programs. But we don't talk about the fact that there are children being locked in cages. We don't want to have those conversations. We don't talk about the fact that grandma raised you in a racist household because she was a racist, her mother and father were racist. We don't want to talk about the fact that the father is molesting the daughter. We don't want to talk about the things that really matter. But when we are fully awakened beings, we are fully intersectional. We are fully integrated with it all, because the world is merely a projection of our collective beliefs about it. Our fears, it's all projections of how we are. And so when we start to elevate and start to see the world as being a place that is inclusive, we must therefore take the steps for that to occur. We have to take the steps for that to occur. It's not just going to magically pop out of our minds. God can only do for us what God can do through us. And so I don't want you to call yourself a political being and all of that, but you are a conscious change agent. You were sent here, being exposed to messages like this, to be a conscious change agent and to be a force for good in the world, wherever you are, whether that's interacting with the political system, whether that's interacting with the educational system, whether that's interacting with the social norms. You are sent here. You and I have been sent here to be conscious change agents, to be a force for good in the world. And this honors the spiritual path upon which we walk. The great story in the Bible of the Good Samaritan is someone who, the individual who broke social norms in order to help someone who was suffering. And that would have been considered a political act, because the ways in which society was structured at that time, these individuals, Samaritans and Jews, well, they were not supposed to interact. So it was political that this individual engaged the process. But I don't think this individual was thinking politically. I think this individual was operating from a place of compassion, from this individual's moral compass. His spiritual appetite needed to be satisfied. And he moved with compassion as any conscious being would do. And so you're a conscious change agent. You are joining the conscious majority of individuals that want to see a world that works for all, and therefore you consciously choose to be a force for good in the world wherever your footprint rests on this earth plane. You are disrupting norms that makes it hard for others to experience their freedom. That's what we are doing. That's what we're about. We bring light in dark places.
That's it.
That's what we're here for. We're gladiators of justice. Warriors. This is why we are here. This is why you were sent here. Don't let your light shine. Don't hide your light on a bushel, but let your light so shine. Yes. So you can call it political. You can call it whatever you want. It is the projection of the love ethic distributed evenly in society. That's all it is. The parties and all that stuff, they're distractions.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Pick your party. Pick your party. You know, what are we working toward? That's the bottom line.
That's it.
Who do I choose to be? What is mine to do? And I want to extend an invitation to white people especially. It's your time to shine. It's your time to engage the promptings that you're feeling. Stumble in if you have to. Stumble in. Crawl in. But get in this move. Get in this moment. Get in this moment for what doing so will make of the legacy you leave. In being, you may be just the individual. You may be just the one person who breaks through the guilt and the shame and the fear and all of that's been caked on over the years because of the consciousness that has been prevailing. Break through that and then tip the scale. You may be the individual who literally reaches that point of the mass awakening. You may be just that one. You may be just that one. And wouldn't that be great?
Yes.
Wouldn't that be great? We're at the tipping point. We're at the tipping point. And we just need a few more folks on the lever.
That's it.
And we're all going over.
That's it.
Going over. On the lever.
And we can go over consciously or unconsciously. Because the tipping is happening.
Yeah. It's going to happen.
That's it.
So you might be the one that tips us over.
Yes.
And catapults us into the universal humans that we're meant to be.
My brother.
Yeah. That's my invitation.
Yes. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for being you. Thank you for saying yes to the calling of your soul. And it's for me as another Black man to see you do the work that you do. It's always inspiring. And, you know, your voice is needed. I'm grateful we had this time together. And for me, I believe this is the beginning of a new way of communicating. Yeah. Thank you. How can people reach you? So they can reach you on Facebook. It's Kevin Ross, right? And I just want to make sure because Kevin Ross seems to be a popular name for some reason.
Look for Rev Kev, REVKEV. I'm Kevin Rev Kev, and I think it's / Rev Kev K. I may be mistaken. On Instagram at Rev Kev K, Twitter at Rev Kev K.
That's right.
UnityOfSacramento.com. And if you need to email me, kross at unityofsacramento.com. kross at unityofsacramento.com. And it has been my joy and delight to be with you, Brother Ade Anafushe.
Close.
Did I get it right?
Close. I give you family pass. I need for Woshe. There you go. Yes.
All right. I don't mind being corrected.
Yes. And you live it by example because you're willing to say it out loud and think, did I get it right? As opposed to, woo, I don't want to mess it up. Yes.
But insist, brother.
Mm.
Insist.
Mm-hmm.
That's how we tutor the world.
Yes.
To be more inclusive.
Mm-hmm.
I'll wait till you get it right. If we want relationship with me, the minimal requirement is that you
get my name right. Put some respect on my name.
Not my fault. On my name.
I know that's right.
Right.
Red banner. My brother, I love you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Love you and everyone there. Are you in Atlanta, bro?
No, I'm in the UK.
You're in the UK.
Yeah.
In the UK.
Mm-hmm. See, my 40 days and 40 nights was preparing me to come back to UK, even though I was resistant.
Okay.
And so after a while, I surrendered. Like, if that's the highest and best answer, I surrender. So yes, a whole new reality. So I'm observing Atlanta from here through the lens of CNN and social media. Yeah.
We will hold the space for you here in the United States. And blessings to your viewers. Thank you for tapping into this powerful leader who is catapulting this wave of transformative consciousness. Inhale it and hold on to it, because it's all higher.
Yes. Your assistant's name, what's her name again? Suhair. Give her my love.
I will do that.
She's probably watching. Thank you for all you do, Suhair. Thank you so much. All right, my brother. Peace and blessings.
Blessings. Namaste, everybody.
And the work continues. Woo! I knew that this was going to be one of those conversations. I knew it. I felt it before the show, and it's there's so much. It's all been said, and what I would just say is we are the ones to do the work. We are going to continue to see, until we don't. We're going to continue to see videos of police brutality. We're going to continue to see them. One reason being there's a lot of energy and attention on that. So not just the media looking to show, hey, here's another one, but it's the law. We have our attention on that. We're exposing the infection in the soul of humanity. So my invitation to you is that you continue to do your work. Ground yourself, do your spiritual practice, because it is not easy. It is, let me say it this way, it is challenging. It is challenging. I don't get to necessarily have this conversation outside of when doing a workshop, co-hosting, or doing a podcast. Most of the time is in my head, in my journal. And I actually have another mentor of mine, not Rev D, but Reverend Mary, that I'm going to reach out to, because I know that I had 2 opportunities last week where I was invited to be part of a group, which is a sort of healing group. But the first one I had to turn it down because I only knew one person. And my honest truth was I couldn't be in the space of me being the only black person, the only black guy, and it's mostly white females. It's like it was triggering. I had to honor that and acknowledge that. And it so happened that it was happening around the time that I was doing my podcast. Now, I was going to actually respond to the person and say exactly what I just said. But what I did was I said, well, if we have further conversations, I will have that with her. And then I realized I couldn't do it because it's the time that I'm doing my podcast. And then there was another opportunity to be in similar space. It was a little bit different, but a space that I'm more used to. And I remember telling the facilitator, I said, I don't know if I'm coming, but if I do come, I may not stay long enough. And there's so many things that I think we need to understand. As Black people, even in the conversation when we're saying white people, white privilege. Yes, it's clear there's some white people that really get it, that understand and doing the work. But people who are in the white body, there's a privilege that you get just by being in a white body. So just what you represent to another can cause a trigger. Just like if you had an accident in a red car, someone in the red car hates you. When you see red, if you don't do the work, you may be triggered by a red car. It's just the way it is. And I say all that to say is we are all going through and growing through our process individually and collectively. And sometimes it is overwhelming. Sometimes we're crying. The guy in Atlanta, Rashard Brooks, there was no reason he should have been shot. He was shot in the back. No reason. Now, you're still going to get some people, white people saying, well, you know, he shouldn't have ran or whatever, which is a way of trying to not really feel. I get that. And some other reasons. And you're going to get the Candace Owens of the world. I'm not going to waste my time talking about Candace Owens. You can Google it. I really want to understand what's going on with people like that, but it's irrelevant. Take care of yourself is the most important point I want to emphasize. Take care of yourself. And even if you're a white body that gets it, you know, white body, you get it, and it's hard to deal with, take care of yourself. Do your spiritual practice. And there's nothing wrong about what's going on. This is the gift of 2020, to see clearly. So all the affirming, the visioning, the praying, everything that we've been doing, focusing on law of attraction to attract what we want. Well, in order to bring something new, you have to let go of the old. You got to let go of the shit in order to experience a shift. Even in your body, you got to release it in order to be able to replenish. It's all part of the process. And we're here right this very moment because we are the chosen ones. We're the chosen ones. And don't waste time arguing with people saying, oh, police officers are not the same. Yes, we know that. But the institution, policing, is part of white supremacy. Oh, I want to say this too. I started reading White Fragility by Dr. Robin DiAngelo. Posted in the chat room. Actually, India, can you do it for me? Because if I post it for some strange reason, it will only go on YouTube. But I can post it in there too. And I hadn't read it in a while, but I picked it up lately. And I think as much as we're inviting white people to read it, it is important for Black people, people of color, wherever you are in the world, to read it as well, because it would help you put language to some things you've been feeling that you didn't have words for. It's a time of awakening. Life is growing, life is expanding, and you're a part of it because you're one with it. And I thank you for being here. Thank you for tuning in, for doing the work you're doing. Shoyinka, my dear sister, thank you for spreading love in the world. You know, it is a great time to be alive. It is, because we get to shape the world. We get to contribute to this new world that is birthing through us. And we also have to understand the fact that some of us are not going to see the world we envision, the world we are creating. And that's okay. That's okay. We are part of the process. Life is eternal. I love you all. I love you. I bless you. I appreciate you. And I thank God for you. Thank you, Rev Kev, Kevin Ross. Check him out. Go to unityofsacramento.com. I think it is. Yes, it is. Well, I don't know. Let me double check. It's also on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, as he shared with you. That's right, unityofsacramento.com. Next week, I have a brother joining me, a white brother, a brother in a white body. Well, it's not really white, just like I'm not black, it's brown. But like I said, I'm a one-man movement in that. I'm in a brown body, and he's in a pale body or lighter expression. And he's going to be talking, we're going to be talking about the work that he's doing with white people to help them see, to help them wake up, to help them acknowledge, and to help them realize you can live in the land of the free and be aware that the land of the free is still oppressive to some people. You can have both. We live in a both and world, not either or. Anyway, I love you all. Thank you. Thank you. I love you. I bless you. I appreciate you. And I thank God for you. Thank you, India, for all you're doing behind the scenes. Oh, speaking of India, so next week I have Peter joining me talking about the work he's doing. The white man talking about, let's go with that. White man talking about the work he's doing with white people. And then the week after that, I'm going to have some young people. Woo! Life is good. It's getting better. Take care of yourself. Be true to you. And know that all is truly well. John Stringer is going to take us home. Peace and blessings. I'm out.
Open arms right now. Welcome to love. Welcome to peace. Welcome to our community.